spoilers? Oh, lots and lots of spoilers. Welcome to Mike Bumpy Movies. Quiet, you, I go first. You may have noticed there has been a bit of a change. You see, Max, well, he has gone to a better place. He has skimmed the starways of tomorrow and is now nearly beyond reach. Tonight, we're hoping we might try and open a door to the unknown to find Max in that undiscovered country. I honestly don't think we'll have much luck. He's gone forever and the show must change, but try we must. Let's all put our hands, and or hooves, on the table and chant. Max, can you hear us?
Yeah, of course I can hear you.
Max, can you see us?
I can see you very clearly. I'm right here.
Max! Max! Oh, well, no good. Nope, no Max. Gone forever. Pity. Well, we'll just continue on without him. He would have wanted it that way.
Oh, for God's sake. You two, okay, I have had it with both you and that equine imbecile. I am going to have you both stuffed and mounted, and I'm not saying which one of you is going to be stuffed inside the other.
Ha! You're back! Well,
I've never...
back. Yes, you simply must tell us about the great beyond, but not right now because...
It looks very much like my foot up your ass.
But right now, we have a show to do.
Yes, we do.
This week, in the ultimate episode of our series, Semi-Real People, the biopic story, we're looking at the 1953 version of Harry Houdini's life, Houdini! Starring Bernie Schwartz and Jeanette Morrison. Or is it Tony Curtis and Janet Leigh? But this show stars Magic Fingers Max Levine and me, Mage Monkey Mike. And we're going to get to this week's film right after we look at last week's poll question. I am in so much trouble.
Yes, you are. Remind us, Michael, what was last week's poll question?
First, have some Bumpy Bucks! Okay. Speaking of Bumpy Bucks, last week we asked, sometimes during a film series, a major character will be replaced with a different actor. In your opinion, when has this worked really well and when it has really not worked very well? Such as me saying this line. Here are the answers you gave us. And we had a few new ones this week. We had quite a lot of responses. Val, again, no relation or, well... all relation, said, quote, wow, you've stumped me on this one. I'm not a big series watcher, though I will say I did like Val Kilmer as Batman, and I didn't like Michael Keaton. So there's that. Sorry, Max.
Wow.
End quote. I don't remember you saying you liked Michael Keaton, but I do remember you saying you didn't like Val Kilmer.
I preferred Michael Keaton. Again, I thought he was a strange choice, but I thought it kind of worked. No hard feelings, Val. It's just that you're wrong!
That's the way to treat our listeners.
Yep.
Both of them.
Wrong! Pat Buchanan! Yes?
Next, we have International Vince, who brings up one of the most famous recastings of them all. Quote, I forgot how many actors replace others in roles. Darren on Bewitched might be the first I remember, but to be honest, I never really noticed that change. I'm going to interrupt here. Vince? Really? A best, worst, best might be the Spider-Man movies, but I'm not sure if that counts as they were maybe reboots. Nowadays, some actors get replaced by computer-generated versions. It's confusing my international brain. End quote. Right on!
He's got a point. I don't know if I would count like the Tobey Maguire, Andrew Garfield, Tom Holland Spider-Man, because it's not... Although it's hard to say, I guess it's a series. Comic book movies are kind of weird that way.
Yeah.
It's really not. Is it that different than, say, when a different artist takes over and suddenly Spider-Man's chin is a foot longer, or he has Jack Kirby spatula fingers or something? Or was that Stark? No, that was Kirby.
That was Kirby. Yeah. I like the fact that we almost have enough actors playing Spider-Man to form a baseball team, but there you go.
Pretty much.
All right, next, Dave says, quote, can't think of many examples outside television if you exclude Bond as well, which we did. The first Jack Ryan I saw was Alec Baldwin, and I thought Harrison Ford was a terrible replacement. The new series of young Jack Ryan is pathetic, but not the actor's fault so much as the script, end quote. He also points out examples like Sherlock Holmes and Poirot that some work and some don't. We have a new contributor this week, Brian, who... doesn't listen to the podcast, but will still get the Bumpy Bucks. Not very useful, but there you go. Brian says, quote, I can't think of any specific ones, but I absolutely hate when this is done. I know sometimes it's very much needed, e.g. an actor dies or has other obligations, but for me, I'm a very visual person. I don't remember names, but I remember faces. When they switch to a new actor, it is so hard for me not to just see them as a new character, end quote. Thanks, Brian. I can see that point.
Yeah.
Or, in cases of some movies, it's a new actor and you just don't care. And last but not least, we have Matt, who will get Bumpy Bucks and a Bumpy Hut catalog as soon as they exist. Matt offers, quote, Ewan McGregor did a great job as Obi-Wan. Even people that dislike the prequels don't have many negative things to say about him. Certainly Ian McDiarmid is better than a rubber mask. I think that's generally true in anything, but there you go. Liev or Live Schreiber made a better Sabretooth, even if the pro wrestler looked better in the costume.
That is true.
I see Batman as kind of like James Bond, in meaning that it's just going to,
That's fair.
Soups to a lesser extent. I don't think anyone has quite captured the earnestness that Reeve brought to the role, which I agree with.
Yeah, I think that's true.
Sticking with supers, Ruffalo is a famously better Banner than Norton, agreed. Don Cheadle does just fine as Rhodey after Howard was booted. I agree, but that was a weird one for me. I was just like, who's this guy? Huh? Okay, because they don't look anything alike, but there you go.
No.
Michael Gambon did a solid job as Dumbledore after Richard Harris died. I prefer Richard Harris's Dumbledore, but he died. What are you going to do? Recasting Rachel Weisz in the third Mummy movie was definitely a mistake. I'm neutral on Julianne Moore in the last Hannibal movie with Hopkins. It's not a good movie, and she doesn't help, but I don't think she hurts it either. End quote. Whew! Well, double bucks for all that. Thank you, Matt.
Yeah.
How about you,
Thanks,
Max?
folks.
Do you have any where it works or doesn't work? Or
I had a couple, actually, but they were sort of already covered. I actually preferred John Cheadle to Terrence Howard as Rhodey. First of all, I just think Don Cheadle's a better actor. But it is jarring because they not look anything alike, I think Don Cheadle's like 4 inches shorter.
Yeah, well, that's because Terrence Howard held the cape up and figured nobody would notice. No, never mind. That's sort of a backwards reversed Ed Wood, but,
I actually I liked Michael Gambon better as Dumbledore than Richard Harris, just because the trope of the feeble old wizard that Richard Harris was, of course, because he was actually at that point a feeble old English actor, is kind of. I liked Gambon's energy, and I liked the sort of almost manic quality he sometimes had. I also thought he had a little bit more of the humor about Dumbledore that admittedly really doesn't come across in the movies nearly as much as it does in the books.
See, I disagree just because Richard Harris's Dumbledore was nice and Michael Gambon's wasn't. He's just kind of like, I don't know, like Michael Gambon gives me the impression that he's not the first party guest I would invite, let's put it that way. Very smart, very capable, really good actor, but just there's this sort of this mean streak in his Dumbledore that I'm like, I don't know. Everyone else seems to like him just fine. And again, it's not like you could do anything like dig him up and what do you do it like a ventriloquist dunny? I'm Dumbledore.
Please, they did that with poor Carrie Fisher and poor Peter Cushing.
Well, Carrie Fisher, they didn't. Actually, her family stipulated...
they did in Rogue One.
Carrie Fisher wasn't in Rogue One.
In the very last scene, when she's given the magic hard drive with the Death Star plans, it's like one of the last shots in the movie. What's on it? Hope.
A new hope.
And it may not have been, maybe they just CGI'd over her.
I think that's what they did, because I thought it was stipulated in her will that she was not going to be, they weren't going to get away with that. Peter Cushing, and quite honestly, he played a ghoul and a vampire and stuff so many times, his weird freakishness kind of works.
Yeah, it kind of did. How about you? Did you have any that weren't brought up?
Nah, not really. I mean, the Darren thing I just thought was funny because there was absolutely no explanation, and quite honestly, Dick Sargent and Dick York don't look anything alike, and I just really wish that at some point the characters, Sam or even Tabitha, or at some point just did a double take on that first episode, like, hey, what, huh? And then Darren kept going, like, I'm Darren, and they were like, okay. But of course, that's because Dick York had back problems and he couldn't do the role anymore, so... but otherwise, no. Things happened. I can't think of an example. But to earn those bumpy bucks, and you know how to do it. You answer our poll question, and you give us your answers in ways that we will explain later in the show. But we have a new one this week.
Yes,
this week,
tell us.
The poll question is, has a movie adapted from another source, be it a book, a video game, a theme park ride, or a breakfast cereal, ever exceeded your expectations? If so, what movie has done so? Please let us know in the usual manner.
Well, of course, I was a little disappointed in Count Chocula, the movie, but...
Well, especially because it was a porn, but, you know, whatever.
I didn't know that when I rented it, really.
Right, so we should get on to this week's movie's trivia. And for those who have already forgotten, this week's movie is Houdini. The show. Budget. No idea. Checked sources, couldn't find out. The take was $1.8 million, which sounds good.
1953, that's not terrible.
Yeah, and George Pal wasn't generally given a lot of money. Speaking of which, George Pal was the producer. He brought us other films like War of the Worlds, The Time Machine, When Worlds Collide, The Seven Faces of Dr. Lao, and more. Yeah. Tony Curtis performed all of the magical tricks seen in this movie himself. Hooray!
Ooh, such magic.
And
that's right, he was an amateur magician, wasn't he?
Amateur. Yes, that's the key word, amateur. A fun linguistical fact, yes, I know that's not a real word. Houdini's real last name was Weiss, or Weiss, or I don't know the Hungarian pronunciation, but they changed it to the German one anyway, so it doesn't matter. That is the German word for white. He's played by Tony Curtis, whose real last name was Schwartz, or Schwarz if you're German, which is the German word for black. Spooky.
Spooky.
I don't know what that means.
Yeah, basically both Harry Houdini and Tony Curtis were Jews who changed their names to sound a lot less Jewish.
Yeah. Janet Leigh was a bigger star at the time this was made, but because she was married to Tony Curtis and was rather traditional, insisted that her husband's name appear first, which was very nice of her.
Boy, did they have kids? Their kids would have been gorgeous.
Yeah, you know. Oh, well, I guess we'll never know.
Yeah.
Sorry, Jamie Lee. This is not the last time Tony Curtis would hang from something while trying to escape a straitjacket. He reprised this little stunt in 1965's The Great Race. Please see our previous episode of the same name. Tony Curtis, generally cast in acting roles, was hoping this film might change his career's fate. Quoting him, "My secret hope, however, was that Houdini was going to propel me into a whole new kind of filmmaking where I would be recognized as the serious actor I had always wanted to be. When that didn't happen, I was terribly disappointed." End quote. Yeah. The serious actor that Tony Curtis wanted to be. Well, otherwise, there really wasn't much to find out about this movie, unless, Max, do you know any trivia?
Not really. There's not a lot about it.
Yeah.
I mean, about the making of the movie. Although it's always nice to see who did the costumes. Edith Head.
Oh, good old Edith. Yeah. All right, so the plot, for those who don't know about Harry Houdini, and actually this film won't help. We'll get to that. Harry Houdini, the most mystifying of mystifiers, starts off his career playing the wild man in a dime show circus. There, he suddenly meets the love of his life, Bess, who seems more in love with the wild man than with Houdini, the boring magician. After a couple more meetings, he wins her over, and they're suddenly married. Together, they go back to the stage, which isn't so great as Harry hoped it would be. He seems to live for the applause, but Bess is thinking more about settling down. At a Halloween dinner for magicians, that's a thing, he wins a prize, a paid steamer ticket to Europe, no country in particular. Bess doesn't want to go, she wants a house. Just when things seem their lowest, Harry gives up and gets a job at a safe company, which he promptly gets fired from while trying to escape from one of their safes. Bess is angry. Harry goes back to the dime circus as a half-man, half-fish. Bess relents, trades in the one-person ticket for two, the Houdinis make it to Europe, and a career is born. Things continue to go well, Harry risking his life for applause, which slowly eats away at Bess. One trick nearly goes terribly wrong, and she thinks that should be the end of it. But a chance meeting with a secretive magician's assistant propels Harry towards the trick that would end it all. Though Bess begs him not to perform it, fearing both some odd magical powers from the trick and the fact that it's Halloween, supposedly a bad day for Harry, Houdini can't resist the calls from the audience. Though he's walked into a prop and apparently aggravated a chronic appendix, he goes into the Chinese water torture cell. Ooh. And sadly does not escape. Harry, gasping for air, dies in Bess's arms. The end. The lowdown.
So what you're saying was By that time, his lungs were aching for air.
Oh, yes, aching and aching and aching for air. Do you ever remember having seen this on TV as a kid?
Nope. I never saw it.
I loved it. I was big into magic. I actually took magic lessons. Yeah, that's a thing. I did a few shows. I was not very good. I owned a trunk of magic stuff. Just loved it. And this movie I thought was terrific. Yeah. You may have noticed that there was a bit in the credits early on. It says, based on a book.
Uh-huh.
Doesn't give a title, gives the author, but it just is based on a book by this guy. For all we know,
there's lots of them. I'll just pick one.
For all we know, it was the history of spatulas, but and actually it could have. Oh, we'll get to that. So,
yeah.
So you hadn't seen this before at all?
I had not. I was I was watching the credits and going, wow. Apart from Tony Curtis and Janet Leigh, I don't recognize anybody, but I did recognize them once they were in it.
Okay, so who to Star Trek alum did you pick up on?
I'm not sure about the Star Trek alum, but Sig Ruman was in there, and he was the guy who owned the show that Harry's first working in, Mr. Schultz.
Okay.
Because Sig Ruman apparently really likes playing guys named Schultz, because he also plays Sergeant Schultz in Stalag 17, which was, by the way, the inspiration for Hogan's Heroes and the character of Sergeant Schultz.
More or less.
Or less. And that reporter who's in, 2 scenes is also a reporter in The Thing, the original one, and This Island Earth, Cal, get that faraway look in your eye.
What kind of blank hole planet is this? Yeah. And hey, here's a plug. If you folks have not seen the Mystery Science Theater 3000, the movie, by all means, do so. It's a lot of fun. Actually, so Mr. Ataz is in this.
Oh.
You know why you didn't recognize him? He had hair.
Oh, is he the master magician?
He is, let me try to think. Yes, he is at the dinner, the Halloween dinner. He's the guy who gives out the Steam ticket.
That, by the way, is a real thing. That Halloween magician's dinner, which was started in honor of Houdini.
Yep. Well, so he did die on Halloween. That is a thing. There is, before we get to a whole list of this, there was nothing in Houdini's life about him having problems on Halloween in general. That's just when he happened to die. And for 10 years after his death, his wife Bess did conduct seances on Halloween to try and contact him. They had a secret phrase that they decided on ahead of time that, if it was uttered during the seance, would actually be him. Interestingly, this I did not know, and I did some research. That secret phrase was given at a seance. But
Andrew Ford.
They found out that it was, in fact, a trick. That it was
a fake, yeah.
The other, just real before we get into the seance stuff, the other was Marplan, who was the guy who was absorbing people in with Landru. So Marplan, he plays Otto, the weird assistant at the end.
Oh,
yeah.
How odd is that? I am sorry. It's like a plot point in this is there is a famous German magician named, what was it, von Schlesinger?
Von Schwager.
Yeah, von Schwager, and supposedly. And this is another theme we're going to talk about, because there is this weird implication that maybe what Houdini did really was magic.
Magic.
And this guy, von Schliemann, was supposedly a guy who had actually learned how to, as they say, dematerialize. Which, by the way, doesn't mean what they think it means.
Yeah.
Because if you dematerialize, it means you disintegrate and cease to exist. It doesn't mean you can walk through walls.
Yeah, that's not the trick. The trick is rematerializing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, anybody can dematerialize. You bury them in the ground long enough, they'll dematerialize. But, yeah. Apparently, I don't think this guy was real. I think they made that up.
Yes.
And Houdini spends all this time trying to contact him to find out the secrets of dematerialization, and he finally goes to see him, and it turns out he's died, but left behind is Otto, his mysterious Landru-like body servant, his Lothar to Mandrake the magician, and Otto just says, "I work for you now." And Houdini goes, "Okay."
Yeah, he just hires himself.
What? It's like, wait, what? So you don't know this guy from a hole in the wall. He doesn't even seem to have a last name, but he's going to work with you and help you with these life or death traps just 'cause.
Well, also, Otto hands him the little toy version of the Chinese water torture cell while saying he wanted you to have this when you were old enough. And, and it's
a more elegant weapon,
Yeah. And this is like, oh, this must be the trick he learned to dematerialize in. Ooh! And the first time Harry performs this trick, that's when he dies. Just like it really happened. No, it didn't!
He's been performing that trick for years, I think.
10 years he performed it. He'd actually even stopped performing by the time he died. But we will get to that. Yeah, there was no Wunschwager. That was made up.
Yeah.
If at best, it's kind of maybe sort of a reference to a magician that Harry initially was very, very enamored with, and in fact took his name from, and then later... because he was rebuffed by, I think, the magician's widow when he wanted to meet her and visit, and she said no. He got all pissed off and basically was like, well, that guy was a charlatan, and he was like, he didn't know what he was doing, and he took credit for stuff, and basically spent a lot of time being a creep to this dead magician. His name was Robert Houdin, which is French for Robert Houdin. Yeah. Houdin. And Harry, when he was young, thought if you added an I to something in French, it meant like that thing. Harry utterly made that up, and it has nothing to do with French or any known language, but there you go.
Oh, is that it? I thought he took on the Houdini because the I made it sound Italian, and in the 19th century, there were a whole lot of really famous Italian illusionists.
No.
And then then everybody wanted to be Italian. Oh,
no.
Okay.
But your thinking that is not entirely unlike how this film was made. But we'll get to that. Let's actually, I don't know if you knew about this part. I'm sure you did, because this seems like something you would know about. The spiritualism. So, late 19th century, early 20th century, spiritualism was a huge thing. And other occurrences at the time would sort of help fuel that. So I think it's 1922, when they discovered King Tut's tomb, suddenly Egypt stuff was big. But of course, that has a mystical quality to it.
Uh-huh.
And people really bought into this whole seances and, mystic people, palm reading, all that stuff.
Oh, yeah. Big thing in the Victorian era.
And Max, who was one of the spiritualism's biggest proponents? Do you know?
The biggest proponents? Well, William Blake was a biggie.
Oh, bigger than that.
Other than that, Queen Victoria was kind of into it.
Okay, maybe not that big.
Okay.
Arthur Conan Doyle.
Arthur Conan Doyle, yes. His wife was a medium, or claimed to be a medium. Actually, she was more of a small, but...
Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, he believed in that stuff. And it was a huge... well, let's say it, industry. There were a lot of people who made a lot of money. And Houdini, this part I did know, Houdini started out wanting to believe in it after his mother died. He kept trying to use spiritualists to contact her spirit. When he finally, let's face it, being an illusionist himself, he figured out pretty quickly that the whole thing was a scam.
Yeah.
Well, and he started...
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
They really skimp on this in the movie.
Oh, yes.
Because he was a crusader against... bogus spiritualism. In this, we see him go to one seance, and I'm sorry, the ghost figures that appear in it and the supernatural would not have fooled Scooby-Doo.
I hate to say this, but that's exactly how they did it.
I know. You look at, I've heard of that, but you look at it now and you go, seriously?
Yeah.
Somebody with glow-in-the-dark gloves and a dummy in the garden.
Yep. Yeah. Well,
again, it was people wanted to believe. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, the other thing that was paired with all this, crappy memorabilia was that people would do things. They would do research, and they would find out. Like sometimes they'd even go and try and ask questions of the mark, as it were, his friends, to find out, like, oh, what is the dead person's favorite song, or what was their childhood nickname, stuff like that, so that they could add just enough fact to their little play to make people believe. And the author of Sherlock Holmes himself must have been a very intelligent person, bought into this stuff with everything he had. And he and Houdini got into huge arguments. They originally were friends, but when Houdini basically was like, this is all fake, everything I've seen is fake, not only did Doyle... not forgive him, Doyle claimed that Houdini was himself a powerful medium, and he used his powers to perform many of his tricks, and when he was interviewing or trying to witness the powers of so-called mediums, he actually used his powers to silence theirs.
Oh boy, Conan Doyle really was went nuts after people wouldn't let him stop writing Sherlock Holmes.
Yeah, so that was a big, and Houdini would lead to people like the amazing Randy and Penn and Teller and lots of other people who have spent
debunkers.
Yeah, like, have you ever seen like psychic surgery is one of the biggest ones that's still going on, which is oh my god, it's the saddest thing, because here are people looking for some kind of cure to cancer. They pay huge amounts of money, and people pull chicken parts out of their hand and make it look like they're pulling it out of their gut.
We saw that in the Andy Kaufman movie, Man on the Moon.
Yeah.
And there are still psychics out there. You see them on the daytime talk shows who sit there and go, is there someone here who's recently lost a family member? I'm seeing an A in their name, or a vowel. I'm guessing they had hair. Did they have 2 eyes?
That's me!
Yes. Yeah, and these people should, I'm sorry, be fed to fire ants, because they take advantage of people's grief, and it's just revolting.
Yeah. So that was a huge part of Houdini's life, which they show once in the movie, and then it goes away.
It was to the point, apparently, there was a admittedly kind of tabloid speculation that when he died, he had actually been poisoned. He'd been murdered by spiritualists.
Well,
there is zero evidence of this, but
as late as 2007. So there's actually some people that wrote a book, and they contacted some of Houdini's family's descendants, and they wanted to exhume his body to prove that he had been, I don't know how, but to prove that he had been murdered by angry spiritualists. They claimed that the exhumation proclamation, whatever, was supposed to be from the family. It wasn't. It was actually from the writers about the book, and thankfully they all said, yeah, let's not do that, because no, but whatever.
Yeah, I do want to bring it back to the movie itself.
Yeah.
What did you think of the performances? Tony Curtis and Janet Leigh.
Let's see. Let's go to my notes on Tony, shall we? Let's see. I know I had a few of them. Tony Curtis has all the stage presence of Tony Curtis.
Yeah.
You can take that for what you want. What do you think?
Tony Curtis, he was saying you want to be taken seriously as a serious actor. There's only one problem. He's not a serious actor. He is a pretty boy who actually had a knack for comedy.
Yeah.
He could be very funny. Some Like It Hot is one of the funniest movies ever made.
Although I don't buy him as a woman.
No, neither he nor Jack Lemmon comes off well in drag at all convincing.
No.
Although Jack Lemmon a little more, I think. Tony Curtis's features are too square.
Yeah.
But he's a profoundly mediocre actor. He does a nice job if you ever saw him in Spartacus as Antoninus, the singer of songs.
Wasn't he in the famous rub down scene?
He's in the bath scene with Laurence Olivier, yes. And really what he is there to stand there and look pretty.
Yeah. And
he can do that. He's a very nice looking man.
Yes, he has startlingly blue eyes. It's very nice.
And
but
I do have... Sorry, go ahead.
There's one point where Janet Leigh is looking into her then-husband's eyes, and I don't remember what she actually says, but I wrote in quotes, "Oh, Harry, you're so above average."
And the sad thing is, Tony Curtis, a.k.a. Bernie Schwartz, who is a Jewish kid from Brooklyn, had a Brooklyn accent so thick you could smear it on hot dogs.
Yeah.
And he spent his whole life fighting it, trying to overcome it. Most of the time he gets away with it. He got better as he went along. It slipped through. But of course, and Mike knows where I'm going with this, the most famous example is one of his first movies. It might have been the first, The Thief of Baghdad, I think it is, or Prince of Baghdad, where he plays like an Arabian Nights character, because, gosh, he certainly looks Middle Eastern. And his line is, "Yonder lies the palace of my father, the Caliph." And what comes out of his mouth, and it was the best take they got, was, "Yonder lies the palace of my father, the Caliph." And it's impossible to watch without cracking up. I've seen that sequence. It's unbelievable. He got better. He really did. But
somewhat.
It's still, you can hear it.
My other note was Tony Curtis' stagecraft is equal to that of a beach squid. There's literally one point where Bess says something to him that makes him feel bad, and I can hear him thinking, I'm sad, as he drops his chin. It's just like, there's just, I don't know.
He's good at the physical stuff. He's got a lot of good physicality.
Well, and that's the thing. He used to get a lot of action movies, and and that's what he wanted to get away from. And I believe that he actually was a serious actor. I think that he seriously wanted to be that thing. I just don't think it comes through in his performances. No. And I heard he was a very nice guy.
He apparently was. He was a sweetie.
But I would not say that this movie is worth seeing because of the performances. Janet Leigh is fine.
She's not given very much to do.
No. I mean, initially she's part of the show, and then when Otto shows up, I guess that's the excuse that she's suddenly not part of the show. Although, quite honestly, I think that most audience members would much rather see Janet Leigh on stage than this tall, brooding, kind of somewhat scary Otto van Schmattenmeyer, or whatever his name was.
Oh, yeah. Especially with the outfits they put her in.
Landrew, guide us! Sorry. So, yeah. And the other performances, it's Tony Curtis, Janet Leigh, and the rest, because there's no other... I mean, the mother's there for 5 seconds. Oh, yeah, she has a great German accent, doesn't she?
Well, she's not supposed to be German. She's supposed to be Hungarian, but yeah.
Well, it doesn't matter.
Angela Clark does not exactly come across as a Hungarian Jewish mother.
Yeah.
By the way, again, she was Mrs. Houdini, or excuse me, Mrs. Weiss, was apparently very much the domineering Jewish mother.
Yeah. Well, domineering, and also he was a mama's boy. He didn't ever want to leave his mom, and so on and so forth. Yeah, and then she dies. We hear that over the phone. Which
you never
helps us understand what a close relationship they had.
Yeah, that's the thing. He dies over the phone. There's some sort of spiritual resonance in that. He had done a trick where he went through the ice in the Detroit River, and he heard her voice and found his way out. And apparently, she died at the same time he heard her voice. And then that's it. That's the last we hear about her or that incident. It just stops.
And he was very sad.
And he was real sad. Which, by the way, is the way the movie ends too. I mean, he's. They break him out of the water trap when, as Mike says, he's dying. And he's just saying to Bess over and over again, I'll come back. If there's any way, I'll come back. And the camera pans away to a poster and the movie's over. I
mean, I swear you can hear the production company's scissors clicking in the background as the footage is going by.
I was watching it and I was going, oh God, did this print I have, does it cut off? Am I going to have to rent it to catch the rest of the ending? Oh, no, there it says the end. Okay. It's very abrupt.
Yeah, it is. It's up. Your money's running out. Snip, snip, snip.
Yeah. It must. I don't know what happened there.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, there's a sequence where Houdini is supposed to hypnotize his wife. He's waving his hand, and all I could think of is sleep
in heavenly peace. Well, I love the fact that she actually kind of wakes up, and it's like, wake me up in the middle of the
trick. Get me down.
Yeah, get me down. Yeah.
I got to admit, I don't know how they did that. That was impressive.
I actually know how that works because I used to do the magic stuff. But yes, I was to make myself even nerdier. Yes, I was a tweener magician. Yeah.
Nerd!
And if I could find those people, I'd give them a refund. Anyway.
Yes, by the way, folks, you can exchange Bumpy Bucks for giving Mike a swirly.
As soon as we print them, never. Yeah, there was one other little bit of quote-unquote mysticism that they implied, and I don't even know what they were implying. So that dinner where he goes to, it's so mean because it's like, oh, Bess, I'll take you out to the best dinner of all. Oh, really? The Hotel Astor, hey, wait a minute, it's all magicians.
Yeah. Yeah, wouldn't that be fun? A whole evening of dinner surrounded by magicians doing card tricks.
Oh, look, I can't wait to dig into this. Where's my fork? Well, it might be behind this glass. It might be behind this napkin.
Yeah, what's this behind your ear? It's the bill.
So they're there's this little contest where who can escape from a straitjacket, because that's never been done before except at this dinner. Lies. And Harry wants to do it, and Bess says no, and finally she relents and lets him do it. So he goes up on stage, and he's in the straitjacket, and the other 5 magicians are all writhing around on the ground, and, it's very comical, and everyone's having a good time. But Harry just stands there, hypnotized by the crystal hanging from the chandelier.
Yeah, what the heck was that?
I don't know, but suddenly his hand comes out by his crotch, which is not at all weird or suggestive.
Thank you, thing.
Yeah, and then Harry manages to get up, but wow, it obviously took a lot out of him because he sweated through his shirt, and what was that? We don't know, they never talk about it, but there's this...
You know how he did it, the way he used to get out? He could dislocate both his shoulders at will.
Yeah.
And if the straitjacket isn't tight across your shoulders, you can loosen your arms and unbuckle it. That's not the only way. By the way, to get out of a straitjacket is not difficult. I worked with a magician in a vaudeville troupe, the magnificent Mark Mitten.
Well, what's a knot between friends?
Yeah, who's a whole show in and of himself. But he actually could get out of a straitjacket, and he could do it. I remember he said, "Yeah, it's gonna. We do it. We do a big thing where it takes 5 minutes." And he says the hard part is making it look like it takes 5 minutes.
Huh.
He says, you can get out of one of these in under 45 seconds.
Well, apparently one of the deals was that it wasn't so much that he could dislocate his shoulders after being put into the jacket. It's when they were putting it on, he would spread them out. So it felt tight, and then once the jacket was quote-unquote tight, he would pull them back in, and that would give him a lot of slack, and he could get out. But
physically, Houdini was remarkable. Never mind that. I mean, he wasn't a very big man. He was like 5'5", 5'6".
5'5", yeah.
He was insanely strong.
Yeah.
He could also pick locks and untie knots with his feet.
Apparently, he could lift needles with his eyelids. Like, that's not... I'm not making that up. That was a thing. Apparently, he...
How is that useful?
I don't know. But, yeah.
How do you find that out? It's like, what other skills do I have? I wonder if I could pick up that needle with my eyelid. Sure.
Hey, when you're Houdini, that's just the things you do.
Yes.
Yeah, the strength, the flexibility, it was all part of the deal. You know, part of the trick was that he had to be that insanely in shape and that insanely flexible. And that dedicated. I'm sure there was parts. There's actually a bit Penn and Teller do where Teller sticks his hand in a bear trap. And they say, look, the deal is you just have to learn to not care when it hurts.
Oh, okay.
And to be fair, I don't know if it's a trick or not, but it certainly looks like painful. So I'm willing to bet that part of the escapes were, look, you're going to get hurt. That's part of the deal. So if you can do that part where it hurts and then later it doesn't hurt anymore, you're going to make a hell of a show. So, yeah.
Yikes.
So that was it for the performances part of the film. There's some other stuff that goes on the accents, when they get to Britain, it's like, oh no. And sure enough, I'm sure that the vocal coach was Dick Van Dyke. Because the British accents.
Oi, governor! Have a pint of ale there.
Or that one guy, I think actually the guy early on, who's the guy who owns the dime show, he is like, his face, he is mugging like it's a silent movie. Oh my God.
Yeah.
You're waiting for that rubber mask to fall out and it's like, Mr. Jenkins! It's just, you know, I don't know what's going on there. There's some weird makeup issues. At one point, Harry has gotten older. You can tell because he has gray hair. You know because he points to it and tells you.
Yeah. Look, I have gray hair, therefore I am older.
Well,
although
and then,
he was, what, 55 when he died?
52. And he wasn't even that at that point in the film. The best part, of course, of being a magician is that literally 5 minutes later in the film, you can see that the gray is gone. And then it comes back again. So, whatever. I don't know.
There's that odd sequence. This apparently is based on truth that when he was performing in Germany, the German High Court called him up for perpetrating a fraud on the German people.
Lies.
Saying that he was a fake.
Lies.
Yeah. But what they leave out, I notice, is he sued for slander. He sued the guys accusing him and won.
Well, that's... So, okay. So what really happened was that a German police officer started shooting off his mouth and claiming that what Harry did was through the use of bribery. He would bribe people to bring him things, and he wasn't actually using any kind of skill or anything like that. And so Harry sued him in court, and actually what he did was he said, I'll prove that I have these skills, I'll open the judge's safe, which he did. He didn't do it from inside, he just opened the safe.
In the movie, he does it from the inside.
He later claimed that one of the reasons it worked so well was, well, the judge actually forgot to lock it.
Oops.
So, but being the showman that he was, and that's something that's missing from this film. Apparently, when Houdini was on stage, you were riveted. and he knew how to play an audience, but he just, I'm going to make this a show, and there you go. And this also goes with that whole Conan Doyle thing, saying, he's got magic powers! No, I just have some skills. And
and this movie really does sort of play with that. It doesn't really have the courage to come out and say it. But like the whole thing of him staring into the chandelier when he gets out of the straitjacket, and the idea of the dematerialization, and that maybe you should, what is it? You should stop because these powers will destroy you. Like, oh, come on. Harry Houdini would have punched you in the mouth for saying that.
Hey, Anakin, calm down. It's just a trick.
Yeah, seriously. Yeah. He doesn't have the midichlorians for this. Relax.
Excuse me. Magichlorians.
Magichlorians, excuse me.
You're a wizard, Harry! Well, we knew that. So there's this part where they show him being very unsuccessful in America, and then he goes to Europe, and apparently they're bigger rubes than we are in America, because he does really well there. When he comes back, though, apparently, like, nobody is interested. And there's a quote, and I don't understand this quote. Somebody says to Harry, Americans are from Missouri.
Oh, you don't know that?
Well, it's the show me state, but it's like, Americans are not from Missouri. Like, we don't all come from Missouri.
Some of them are. The ones who live in Missouri are from Missouri, but...
It's when they said that quote, I was like, wait, what? Americans are from Missouri.
Yeah, it really didn't make a lot of sense.
I hope that never makes it to a license plate, because that was...
You notice a lot of people in this movie have been doing things for 40 years. The safe maker has been a safe maker for 40 years. The master magician has been a master magician for 40 years. Like, I don't know what it is. It's like biblical, 40 years in the desert, 40 days and 40 nights.
In the desert.
No, it's 40.
I think it's 30.
30 years in the desert?
Didn't Jesus die when he was 33?
Dude, I'm talking about Moses. Moses and the Israelites. No, he was in... Yes, he
was 500.
Jesus wanders for 30 days.
Oh, no, wait, that's Noah. What do I know?
Noah,
Bumpy Bucks, Bumpy Hut. It's a
40
thing.
days and 40 nights. Yes, the Israelites were lost in the desert for 40 years.
40 days and 40 nights.
Because Moses was a guy and wouldn't stop and ask for directions. I know where I'm going.
Also, there's just this weird nonsense of time. So in the beginning, we don't know when this starts taking place. We guess it's Victorian era somewhere. And then it remains Victorian era for a long time, and then suddenly it's kind of the 20s, although we just see some of the clothes change. We don't see things like cars much, or any other
any reference to World War I.
No, it just sort of happened, I guess. Yeah. But, I don't understand why they were like, you could actually put the actual times there because, he was a real person, but... It's weird. And there's one point in the film, I can't remember exactly when it is, where it's like, I know it's supposed to be the 20s, but everyone's still in those weird Victorian get-ups, and it's like, you're really confusing me. And then you'd find out it's like, well, 5 years has gone by. Wait, what, huh? That was 2 seconds ago. Like, literally, you changed camera angles, and that's it. And where's your gray hair?
Yeah. Also, the way they portray his mother is very strange. Never mind... it doesn't matter how she really was. Mrs. Weiss actually was. Harry comes home married to Janet Leigh
on the first date.
I think it was like but we don't know. The implication is it's like within 5 minutes of them getting to know each other, and her reaction is just messing with him a little bit, and then I'm so happy. It's like, okay, no. No Jewish mother, and especially no Jewish mother from the old country, is going to go, you got married without telling me? You got married to a woman I've never met in my life. Never mind that she's a shiksa.
Now, Max, you don't know that. Just because she's blonde and blue-eyed doesn't mean...
No, that's true, except that Bess actually was Catholic. Which made things rather awkward.
Yeah, well...
It's true. Of course, in the movie, we don't know he's Jewish.
No.
There's nothing to suggest it. So,
no.
But no mother is going to go, oh, that's so nice. You got married, and we didn't have a wedding, and I've never met you in my life. Come on.
Yeah. We should get to our questions, because I have this feeling there's going to be a lot of answers, and I'm going to put them out of order. I'm going to put the second question last. So, what do we know about Houdini from this movie?
You mean actually know or think we know?
Either.
Well,
No,
we
leave
know that there
actually
was a,
for later, but let's.
Okay, we know there was a magician named Harry Houdini.
Yeah. Okay.
That's about it. and we know he died allegedly as the result of
the water
bumping into a prop and having a burst appendix.
Yeah. I would agree with that.
And he was married and was popular in Europe, and I'm done.
Okay. He had a mother.
Yeah, he had a mother, excuse me, and she died.
Over the phone. Dying over the phone was very, very popular in the early 1920s.
It was one of the leading causes of death.
Yes, the telephone. Do we feel we get to know the subject better after having watched this?
I think I got to know him worse. I think I forgot things I used to know about Houdini watching this movie.
Yeah. I would say that it's funny because we watch a movie and it's about a person's life, and I honestly came away going, nope, don't know a thing. I mean, yeah. Tricks are nice, and he likes applause, and apparently he's easily susceptible to crystal. But
I'm glad that we saw this. This was an interesting choice because this one I think is completely different than any of the other biopics we see. This is very much a product of the 50s.
Yeah.
And this is back when, we're doing a biopic, and that means we're glorifying the person.
Right.
We just want to tell you how cool they were, and we're not going to show you any of the bad stuff or any of the controversy or any of the warts. We're just going to show you this nifty story. It's like, this is Robin Hood, basically. This is Sherlock Holmes or King Arthur. You don't need to know anything real about him.
It's like reading the My Little Golden Book biography of Snoop Dogg. Well, we're not going to mention the pot, okay?
And then Snoopy Dogg went and made some songs, and people said, "Yay, we like your songs very much."
Hey, I actually saw biographies of both Cold as Ice. What's his name? Ice Ice Baby. Vanilla Ice, and dear God, MC Hammer in Toys R Us. How much you think those left out? Yeah,
I wonder.
And I agree. This was a very Hollywood movie. You know, it was all about glamour and glitz and showmanship and fun and whatever, which leads to the question we usually ask second: how accurate was the depiction?
I think this was, if you go on a scale of 1 to 10, I think we're into the negative numbers here. I think it's actually detracted from what we actually know.
So
again, the thing that pisses me off, you know, as a child of Abraham over here, is Harry Houdini was Jewish, and this was actually a real problem for him because a lot of people didn't want to see Jewish performers. God, you know, I don't know who was left, but... And they mention, not only that mention he's not Jewish, they don't even suggest that his name was not Harry Houdini. That was his stage name.
Yeah, I did a little digging, and there's a few other things that they either utterly left out or got utterly wrong. So one of the things is, I was sitting there going, didn't Harry perform with a brother? Oh, yeah. Harry had 6 siblings. 6! And his brother, who was Theodore, who went by the stage name of Hardeen, they traveled and performed together a lot. In fact, a lot of Harry's most successful tricks he would give to his brother, and even in his will said, when I die, you should destroy all these when you're done with them. He didn't. So yeah, they don't mention any of the 6 siblings. His father, they actually were born in Hungary, and they immigrated when he was young to the U.S. They don't mention that. They actually immigrated to Appleton, Wisconsin, long before they went to New York City. New York City!
Yeah, they don't mention his film career. He made 5 movies.
Oh, well, he did a serial, too.
Oh, okay.
They don't mention those either. At 9, he started as a trapeze artist and called himself Erich, which is his real name, Prince of the Air. The Wild Man thing was true, but he was also known as the King of Cards because he did a lot of close-up card magic. According to a lot of magicians at the time, he was an okay sleight of hand guy. That wasn't his strength. But yeah, his brother Theodore, or Dash, which I guess was his nickname. What a great nickname. Man, I wish I could have that.
Yeah.
They went around as the Brothers Houdini. Bess was a performer in the same dime show he was. She was our patron.
In this one, in the movie, she's like this innocent little college girl.
Yeah.
From some all-girls school who's like swept up in the magic of it all. But no, she was like a chorus singer or some such. She was in showbiz.
The magic of it all. Instead of having to quit and take a regular job, Houdini started doing handcuff escapes and was soon very successful on the vaudeville circuit. Once that was done, then he toured Europe. And a demonstration in London was so successful, he was booked for 6 months in the Alhambra Theatre. Not held over. He was just like, yeah, we'll take you. He toured Europe and Russia and America for 20 years and was one of the world's highest paid performers. He later went by the Handcuff King moniker as opposed to the King of Cards.
On his selective service papers, he legally changed his name to Harry Houdini. It's listed as Harry Handcuffs Houdini. I want to be Max Handcuffs Levine. Yep, that's my new middle name.
In my heart, you always will be. So a member of the Society of Magicians, he also published his own magazine called Conjurers Monthly, in which he wrote of magic and magicians, although mostly he used to attack his rivals and praise his own appearances. The magazine lasted 2 issues.
Yeah, they also leave out he was a rather litigious fellow and used to sue the crap out of anybody who was trying to copy his tricks.
Yep. In fact, after being imitated so much, he started switching to escaping from just about anything, including things made and brought by members of the audience. The strangest thing he ever escaped from, see if you can guess.
Battery cables.
A beached whale that washed ashore in Boston.
How did someone bring that to the theater?
Well, he did it out on the dock.
It's like, hi, Mr. Houdini, we got this thing outside.
Yeah, the von Schweber thing, utterly made up. There was no magician named von Schweber. There was Robert Houdin, which I mentioned. The water tortoise was something he came up by his own. He came up with it in 1912, continued to do it for 10 years, and that had he gave it to his brother. That actually did survive him, but it...
Sorry, I was surprised they didn't bring in the legendary way he died.
You mean the real way he died?
Well, one of his tricks was he had immensely strong stomach muscles, and he would invite really large, powerful men to punch him in the stomach, and they'd usually, hurt their hands.
Yep.
And allegedly 2 students were interviewing him for a paper, and one of them hit him when he wasn't ready, and hadn't clenched his... and may or may not... Now, this is the thing. People have often said, oh, that's what caused his appendix to burst. That's what killed him. That's... some question, because the relationship between blunt force trauma and appendicitis isn't a clear one.
Well, let's delve a little deeper into that, because there's a little more to that story. That is actually true. There were 3 college students at the time. Harry was actually reclining on a couch because he'd broken his ankle in a performance, and the guy said, hey, I heard you can do this, and hit him while Harry was laying down. So that part is true. Now, what happened was he... probably either did rupture his appendix or had appendicitis as it was. He performed that evening, continued for another 2 days without seeking any medical help, had a 104-degree temperature the night after a performance, because he performed through it anyway. Then he went to the hospital, and they're like, it's too late.
Yeah.
So, at the very least, it contributed to it.
Yeah.
He was apparently not big on... Yeah, he apparently was not big on doctors. But he was not in any kind of contrivance when he died. He was in the hospital.
Yeah, he got out of all the escapes. Yeah, that's just way over-dramatized, yeah.
Other things left out, he was an accomplished pilot.
Huh.
He barely wasn't the first person to fly in the Southern Hemisphere. He went to Australia, had his plane brought, and for a long time, a lot of history books actually have that he was, but it turns out one guy did it a number of months before he did in Australia. But he, was flying a plane in whatever the teens down in Australia. Kind of forgot that. Maybe that's in the director's cut. I don't know. But,
I don't think so.
But all of the things that we just talked about here, none of them are in the movie.
This movie, it's clearly this movie is for fun, and honestly, I don't think it's that much fun.
Well, we should get to that. Do you have any more notes before we render our verdict?
No, I think let's go to the videotape.
Go to the Sizzler.
Yeah, let's go to the Sizzler.
The Roundup. So, Max, would you like to let us know what you think of this film?
I think it's harmless. Well, actually, I don't think it is harmless. It's kind of harmful because it gives you a completely mistaken impression of what Harry Houdini was like and what his life was like. If you don't take it as an accurate movie about Houdini, it's okay. I mean, it moves along. Some of it's kind of cute. Seeing the tricks recreated. Janet Leigh is fun to look at. Lee or Leigh, I'm not actually sure how to pronounce her last name. It's all right. It's also not that long. It's like an hour and 45 minutes. It's harmless, except if you actually are trying to learn anything about Harry Houdini, in which case it's actually detrimental. What about you?
I think you'll agree with me on this. We like to say that films like this, if we're trying to be as fair and impartial as possible, it was in focus.
Yeah.
Most of the time. Yeah. I remember loving this as a kid. It was a, Saturday afternoon special. To be fair, it might have been one of the things that got me into magic. It bears almost no resemblance to any person who's ever lived, except for the name. The guy was far more interesting than this picture would have you believe. The performances, Tony, maybe later you do better. This is not one of your better performances. You do the tricks fine, but quite honestly, you have absolutely no magnetism when you're doing them. So Janet Leigh's fine. I would like her better in Psycho, but whatever. And probably she's fine. I would say you could give this one a miss, but I wanted to watch it because this is a Hollywood capital H biopic capital B.
Yeah, this is a really good example of that. Like I said, it's very different than what the biopic has evolved into.
Yeah, and it's like there was no... you couldn't really blame somebody. You could, nowadays it's like, excuse me, you're saying so-and-so was this and they're not? No, there was no accountability back then. It was the 50s. People just wanted to be entertained, and I'm sure at the time it was entertaining. I'm guessing the film was probably made for the range of $500,000 to $750,000. That's about normal for a George Pal movie of the time. So it more than made it double its money back, I'm guessing. So, but yeah, if you're at all interested in magic or Houdini, don't bother. But it was very much not like the other films that we'd watched. But just to remind our listeners who are still here, we have that poll question. We have a new poll question this week, as we do every week. This week's poll question is, has a movie adapted from another source, be it book, video game, theme park ride, breakfast cereal, shoes, whatever, has it ever exceeded your expectations? And if so, what is that movie? Please let us know. And how would you do that? Why, you could email us directly.
Yes.
Not that anyone has. At us at maxmikemovies.com. You can go to our website, which not only has every single episode you can imagine and a few you can't, all separated for your convenience, where you can comment and let us know about that particular poll question, or heck, you can comment on any of the other episodes. Give us ideas. We'll take criticism. We might not give Bumpy bucks for it, but we'll take it. And that is, of course, maxmikemovies.com. If you like and love and cherish social media, you can find us on both. I almost was going to say Instagram. We don't have an Instagram account. Maybe we should. You can find us on Facebook and Twitter at maxmikemovies. And last but not least, you can find us on the podcast app of your choice, which is pretty much all of them at this point, I'm sure, because you found us here.
Yep.
And yeah, you can give us comments on Facebook. That's fine. But we're all done with biopics. You'd
like that, wouldn't you?
Well,
as punishment for claiming I was dead at the beginning of this show.
But you were!
We're going to extend this series, because there are a lot we have not gotten to. We're going to do another couple of these biopics.
I don't think of it as punishment, though. I hope it's not.
Yes, it is. Shut up.
Oh.
Well, then, don't worry. The punishment will begin soon.
Why are you threatening our listeners?
It's not our listeners I'm threatening.
Oh. Get him, Bumpy!
Oh, please. Try and get me. Come on, you overgrown mule.
Hey.
That's right. I'll chop you up and sell you to Purina.
So we're extending for a week or two?
We are. A couple more episodes.
All right.
Next week,
yes,
we're going to do the 2000... This is a very different sort, as it's animated.
Ooh.
Yes, we're going to see the 2007 film Persepolis.
Oh, that's where Superman lives.
No, that's not... No, I thought he worked in Gotham Per City.
Well, it's the one across the river.
Across the river, yes. Now, this is the animated biographical drama. It's autobiographical, based on the author Marjane Satrapi's autobiographical graphic novel of the same name.
So we're going to watch a movie where she holds up a book and flips pages?
Yep, it's fascinating.
Oh.
Yep. Is she going to lick her finger before she turns the page? Are two of them going to stick together? You know, it's a thrill ride.
I can't... Wait, so next week, come and read our podcast along with us, won't you? Yep. You'll be glad you did.
This has been a co-production of The Voice of Max and The Movie Wrench.